Hey, I'm Jocelyn, and today we're gonna make crème brûlée. Crème brûlée is Liam's absolute favorite dessert. He asks for it all the time, and I finally just decided one day I'm just gonna learn how to make this. And every time I do, I feel like I'm in France. It's a wonderful, easy dessert. I know it sounds complicated, and it's one of those things you probably only get when you go to a restaurant and you pay something crazy, some crazy price for it, but it's actually something you can do at home with 5 very simple ingredients. One is cream. You're gonna have 1/4 cream. You're gonna have a cup of sugar divided into 2, 6 egg yolks, a vanilla bean, and I'm gonna show you how to deal with that in just a second. The big thing is a torch. And actually, I can tell you a way to not use a torch, but the torch is the easiest way to get that beautiful crispy crust on top. But we're just gonna go ahead and get started. And we start with our vanilla bean. These are not cheap, so you want to handle them properly so you don't have to have more than one, because they're like 10 bucks a pop usually. So we're going to take this and slice it right down the middle. So after you've sliced it, you are going to carefully pull it apart and take the back of your knife, and you're gonna scrape out all the good bits right inside of here. And you know what, we're gonna put the whole entire bean in there, so if you kind of fudge up and you don't get everything in there, or your bean's a little old like mine is, and it's not splitting very well, that flavor is still gonna come out. So we're just gonna do that. Back of your knife again, so you don't ruin your knife. And scrape all that yummy goodness out. Okay, now that I've got all that scraped out, I'm going to put the entire bean and all the pulp into my cream. And I'm gonna get every last little bit of that if I can. These tiny little things are messy. We're gonna put that right there. And then we're gonna take this over to the stove and we're gonna bring it to a boil. Okay, so we're just gonna put this to boil. The important thing with this is you're gonna do like medium to medium high heat, and we're gonna pour it all in here carefully. And the important part is that you need to stir it. Don't let it burn. You know, cream can kind of get a little bit crazy like that, so it's good to just kind of give it a stir. You can let it cook for a little while, but keep your eyes on it. Make sure you're paying attention to how it's cooking. And when it starts to boil, we're gonna just turn the heat off, and we're gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes to cool down before we add it to our eggs. Okay, so we've got our cream cooking, and I am going to constantly be looking over at it and give it a quick stir as needed. But in the meantime, we're going to we're gonna whisk our eggs. And you can do this by hand. I'm just going to do it with this so that I can go back and forth between my eggs and my cream. And I just find it's easier with this. If you don't have a stand mixer, don't worry. A whisk in your hand works just as well. So we're gonna do those 6 egg yolks and then half a cup of sugar. And we're just gonna whisk it until those eggs lighten up. So you just pay attention to, the color they are right away. And then you'll know when it's time. Okay, those eggs are really nice light yellow. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but it's really sort of pastel yellow. And I'm just gonna let that sit for a second and check. Gotta check on my cream. Okay, so I told you I would tell you a way to make crème brûlée without using one of these handy little propane things. You know what, this propane torch I bought at Bed Bath & Beyond for like maybe $15, and it came with this. It's actually not propane, I'm sorry, it's butane. Not a scientist. Anyway, so you can refill these, and it came with this extra little refill here. So if you are uncomfortable using this, because they are flammable, and yes, it's a torch, so if you're not cool with that, the other way to do this is that when it comes time to crisp that up after they've rested and things, you can put these in your oven under the broiler, and you have to be really vigilant and put them up there for a short amount of time. Depending on what kind of broiler setup you have, you might just do them in a line underneath one of the broil things if you've got electric. But if it's gas, it's kind of a little different flair, so you'll need to decide that on your own, and it may take 1 or 2 times before you really perfect that, but it'll crisp that right up, and it only take like maybe a minute, and you take that out and then it'll be ready to serve. But for my purposes, this is the way to go. I love using the torch. It's really easy. You just have to really read the warnings and directions and all that, and make sure you're not gonna burn your house down, okay? So this is sort of starting to boil. I'm gonna let it cook just a little bit longer, but you can see those bubbles are starting to come up on the side. Just turn it down a tiny bit and give it another couple minutes. Okay, so this has come up to a boil. I've kind of stirred it repeatedly and it's just sort of starting. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to fish around in here and find that vanilla bean. I'm gonna take this vanilla bean out and I'm gonna keep it because you can actually use that later for something else. I would use it rather sooner than later, but you can keep it and use it again. And since they're so expensive, it's kind of nice to do. So we've got our cream has boiled and the vanilla is all incorporated and it's really lovely, and you can start to kind of smell that vanilla in there too. I'm just gonna let that rest for 15 minutes and then we're gonna add it to our eggs. Basically, we're just building a custard and it's pretty simple. So we're just gonna let this sit and I will be back in 15 minutes. Okay, so this has cooled for 15 minutes and I'm just gonna give it a quick stir. It's still warm, it doesn't have to be cold. Actually, kind of helps to temper the eggs a little bit. So I just stir it a little bit to get that skin off the top, and then I'm gonna pour it back into my measuring cup. Okay, when you've done that, get a spatula because you're gonna have little bits of vanilla bean in there and you don't want to lose any of those. Get those little guys all into your cup. Okay, so this has been cooled and I've got it. I put it back into my measuring cup because it's easier to pour into this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put this on like a medium swirl, right? And I'm just gonna add this slowly to my eggs and sugar. And part of the reason you're gonna do it slowly is because this is still somewhat warm and you don't wanna cook your eggs. They'll kind of curdle. You don't want to have scrambled eggs in your creme brulee. So we're just gonna make sure this is going at a pretty good clip and we're gonna pour this slowly. So as this gets really full, I just turned it down a little bit so it's not splashing all over the place, so it doesn't make a mess. Also, I don't want to have too much air incorporated, so it's not like really bubbly. It's gonna foam a little bit, and that's fine, but I don't want it to get like crazy bubbly. Okay, so we've got everything nicely incorporated. Again, we've got little bits of vanilla bean, and I just want to get those right in there. I'm gonna scrape those little bits, those seeds in. Okay, so now we're gonna take all of this and we're gonna pour this into our ramekins. And right now, as I'm pouring, I'm gonna go turn on my tea kettle because we're going to put hot water around these ramekins. And so I'm gonna go and turn on my water real quick. Okay, and the pouring. I don't know how much you can see of that foam, but there's definitely foam in there. I'm gonna fill these about halfway first, and then I'll go back and add more in a bit after I get them all in there. So I have just a little bit extra, and I always end up with a little bit extra. This is supposed to make 6 ramekins. Maybe my ramekins are a little smaller than others. So I'm gonna grab one more and fill that up. It's never a bad thing to have extra creme brulee in my book. So that last one is gonna get all that foam too. All right. So a lot of people are really afraid of water baths. It's really not that hard, and in my opinion, the trick is to set this in your oven, and then take your tea kettle or whatever you've got your hot water in and carefully pour it into the pan around this, because what happens if you pour it here and then you pick it up and you end up sloshing it and you get water in your creme brulee and it makes a giant mess. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to go place these in the oven, and I'm going to turn off my tea kettle because I don't want boiling water. I just want it to be hot. So I'm going to take these over here. So here we go. We're just going to pull this down, and helps if you pull this out just a little bit and slide these in. Leave it out a skosh. Okay, and then we pour the hot water in, and we want the hot water to come up about halfway up the ramekin. So this usually takes about 2 quarts or so of water. Okay, that's it. We're just gonna carefully slide this in. And that's it. I'm just gonna put this in to bake for 40 minutes, and then we will rejoin you in a minute. Okay, so these have been in for 40 minutes, and what we're looking for at this point is a jiggly center. So very carefully, because this is ridiculously hot, pull this out. Keep your hand underneath so your thumb doesn't get in that hot water. Okay, before I pull the other one out, I'm just gonna test this, and I just want to push it around a little bit and make sure that the middle is still jiggly, but the edges are pretty solid. Okay, so these look really good. I am going to grab the other ones out, and I'll show you just what they should look like. Okay, I swear that is the hardest part of making creme brulee, is taking these puppies out of the oven with hot water in there and not splashing it all over yourself. So if you've done that, you can make creme brulee perfectly. Okay, so I'm gonna show you what this should look like. Can you see? Try to jiggle it a little. You see the middle is jiggly, but the edge is less jiggly? That's what we want. So now that I've got those all cooked and they're pulled out, I'm gonna let that cool off a little bit, and then I'm gonna drain the water and pick out each of the ramekins, and I'm gonna put those in the refrigerator for 3 hours minimum, so they get nice and chilled throughout. And then you can actually leave those in the refrigerator up to 3 days. So, you know, this is a great thing to make ahead of time if you know you're gonna have a dinner party or you've got some company coming or something. You can do this well in advance and not have to stress yourself out close to time when they're all coming. So I'm gonna do that, and then I will show you how to finish these off later. So I am back. My creme brulee has been in the refrigerator for about actually 5 hours now, and we're gonna get ready. Hello. This is Liam. He is gonna help me torch my creme brulee a little bit. So these are nice and cool, and what are we gonna do first? Do you know?
Put the sugar on top.
Put the sugar on top. All right, there's your spoon. I'm gonna get a spoon too. And we just shake it nice.
Can we have a little spoon?
Yeah, a big one's fine. Because about 1 big spoonful is enough. So see how I kind of did that? And then I'm just gonna really carefully kind of shake it around like that. And if I have a lot extra, I'll put it on the next one. Good. You just want like a thin coat, about a tablespoon or so.
I'm scared.
Tap it like this. Maybe try that. It's a little much here. I think we have a little too much in that. Now try. Good. You want to set that up here? All right. Do you want to try to torch one?
Sure.
All right. I'm going to show you how to do the first one, all right? And then I'll guide you on the second one. Is that good?
Okay, you push that down.
This is a safety. So different guns are different, but mine has a little safety back here, and this is the ignition. Never pointed at someone like that. So keep it away from yourself. Follow the manufacturer's directions. Do not mess around with this. And then we just...
I actually don't want to do it.
You don't want to do it? That's okay.
It's a
We're just going to hold it here. Yeah. I kind of start far away, and you'll see that this starts to crystallize. You can see when the sugar starts to melt. Do you see that? It looks like raindrops, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yep. So as that starts happening, I get a little closer. And then it starts to bubble really, and it happens really fast once it starts to bubble.
I
Is it
just saw
exciting?
its name catch.
Yeah, it does. That is just about perfect. Good? So you can see that really creme brulee is an easy process. It's really just whipping, cooking. So you cook some cream and some vanilla. You whip some eggs and some sugar. You put it all together. You stick it in the oven for a minute. You stick it in the fridge for a minute, and then you torch the holy heck out of it. Anyway, okay, that's really simplified, but it actually is a really easy dish to make, and it is so decadent and luxurious, and it's just your favorite, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. All right, do you want to taste it?
Wait, is it still burning?
No, it's fine. You good?
You have the first bite.
You want me to have the first bite? So we're just going to crack that. It's a little still warm on that bit.
I don't think that was too crystally.
Tastes good to me, buddy. Ooh, got the whole thing. There you go. Chew with your mouth closed, little piggy. It's good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, there you go. Liam approved. Good. Take it to the table. All right, so we'll see you next time for another great recipe. Bye. That's it. So after you've burnt it, just let it sit for a minute so that kind of crusts over and it gets nice and hard, and then you can put whipped cream or whatever you want. I'm just gonna put a couple pretty little berries right there, and that's that. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope that you are no longer intimidated by the idea of creme brulee at home.